I have a lot of empathy for managers because we get put into uncomfortable situations all the time and no one really teaches you or shows you how to be a good manager. So in this video, I want to tackle why managers fail and how you can avoid the common pitfalls that most managers fall into. And it's important to mention that good management isn't just something that leads to a successful business. It's something that creates a positive work environment for your employees and just generally makes people feel like their ideas are heard, that they're accepted as part of a team, and that they can really grow within the company. And what happens is when you fall into these common pitfalls, it usually impacts your team's morale and the culture that you're building. And so the more conscious that you can be about how you create a better culture or how you create a better team means that you're going to have a better team performance and you're going to have a better positive work environment at the end of the day. So without further ado, let's jump into it. The first common reason that managers fail is lack of communication skills. You can think of effective communication as the backbone or the foundation of good management. If you think of the opposite, poor communication leads to misunderstandings, low morale, and missed deadlines. Think about it from your employee's standpoint. If you have to complete a project, but you don't know what your expectations are, you don't know when the deadlines are, you don't really know even what the project is supposed to entail, that's where poor communication often comes in. So as a manager, if you're looking to create better, positive, more communication on your team, the three things that you're going to want to do are hold regular meetings with your team. The second thing is you want to invest in or have some sort of collaboration tool, whether it's Slack, whether it's Microsoft Teams, whether it's Asana or some sort of project management system. You want to make sure that people have a place where they can come together and collaborate and have ideas. And it's best if you are able to do that in a place that allows for things to be written down, not only for a track record of history for you to look back on, but also for your employees and your teams to reference in the event that they have, something, a deadline that comes up and they're like, hey, when was the deadline for this? I didn't have it in my notes. So anywhere that you can do a collaboration tool, that would be fantastic. And the last thing is to have regular constructive feedback sessions, whether that's a formal sit down, having a conversation, or if it's something where you're just really comfortable giving that constructive feedback on the go as you're in meetings or as you see something, if you feel comfortable giving constructive feedback. But it is important that you get really good at that habit. It doesn't have to be something where you're negative and you just say, this sucks, I don't want it. But it can be something where it's like, well, this doesn't quite meet the mark of what we're looking for. Can you go back and try it again? Those types of criticism and conversations need to be front and center when you're meeting with your team to make sure that they understand what's expected of them and where you want them to go in terms of their own professional development. The second manager fail is inability to delegate. I see this usually with managers who are first starting out, who are used to being individual contributors, and then they go into leading and managing a team. The issue usually comes together with people not knowing how to assign projects or not being sure what to give to people when they're assigning them a project. And usually what that means for the manager is that you feel overwhelmed and you feel burned out because you're constantly trying to get all of these tasks either done or sorted or kind of figured out how they're going to be accomplished, but you don't have the skill set yet to be able to delegate to your team in a way that's efficient and autonomous at the end of the day. So what are the solutions for this? First, you want to identify the strengths of your teams. What is each individual on your team really good at, and what is something that is going to be a natural fit for them if you decide to delegate a specific project to them? So if somebody, for example, is really good at being creative and you have an idea that you say, hey, we need to come up with 10 really good creative ideas, that's for that person. If you can identify the strengths of those individuals on your team and assign them projects that fit their strong suits, you'll find they'll be a lot happier, but also you won't have to stress about it getting done because you know that the best person's working on it. The second thing is to encourage ownership. If you know that there's an entire workflow that someone needs to own, let's say it's social media management, you can let that person own it and then just schedule the check-ins with those individuals when it's appropriate or when you need to know the information. And the third thing is to set clear expectations. This could be something as simple as just saying, here's the deadline, here's what I want it to look like, and then letting your team get creative with how they execute it at the end of the day. The third failure that a lot of managers fall into is failure to adapt to change. The one thing that's consistent in business is change. And if you are, as a manager, not able to adapt to change, adapt to changing priorities or changing circumstances, your team is going to be outdated and you are going to be leading a team of ineffective individuals. The three things that you want to focus on are celebrating adaptability, that is your team's ability to try out new methods, see what works, see what doesn't work, and then rewarding them when you see something that either maybe doesn't work out or it works out the way what you expect it to. By celebrating adaptability, you're recognizing and rewarding individuals for doing something that maybe that they would not have done previously. And regardless of the outcome, just celebrating the fact that they're able to change so quickly and come up with new ideas. The second thing is to foster a safe space. You want your team to feel like they are able to come up with new ideas or to be vulnerable or to have kind of a space where they aren't going to be ridiculed if they come up with an idea that maybe doesn't stick. But the more that you can create that safe space for them, or psychological safety as it's called, if you're able to create that space for them and allow them to come up with new ideas, you'll be really impressed with the change that comes forward and how quickly your team is able to adapt to change, knowing that they're able to make mistakes. And lastly, you want to stay updated with trends or topics that are in your area or business things that are happening. And then most importantly, you want to understand where the executive team is, where the direction of the executive team is going, so that you can position your team to be in line with where the organization is headed. The fourth management fail is micromanagement tendencies. A lot of managers fall into a micromanagement cycle and they don't actually know how they get there, they don't know how to get out. And really what micromanagement boils down to is a lack of trust. So if you don't trust your team and you're getting a lot of information or a lot of expectations thrown at you from the executive team, it's the pressure from the top and the kind of making sure that everyone below you is able to do what they need to do that creates an environment of micromanagement. So to not be a micromanagement, here are some ideas or some solutions that you can do. First, you want to set clear goals with your team, with the executives, with whoever you're working with. Second, you want to provide support rather than oversight. It's more important for you as a manager to tell your team, I support you, rather than I'm making sure that you're doing it right. By giving your team a little bit more flexibility to come up with mistakes, they're going to be feeling a lot more autonomous and they're going to be able to feel like they're able to kind of contribute to the organization in their own way, as opposed to you telling them exactly how it needs to be done. And lastly, you need to trust your team's expertise. Whether it's a team that you've inherited or it's a team that you've hired, you need to trust in the fact that they're able to execute at least some of their job. And then you as a manager need to figure out how you can build from that place of wherever they are, whatever expertise and skill sets they have. How can you build on those skill sets to grow and develop them as individuals? And the last management fail is poor decision making. Poor decision making almost always exclusively comes from ego, from a place of saying, I know more than anyone else, and not actually considering your team's feedback. So to make sure that you're getting your team feedback, here are 3 solutions that you can implement. First, you need to make sure that you're valuing all feedback as the same. Whether it's coming from the most senior employee or the most junior employee, you want to make sure that you look at feedback as valid no matter who it's coming from. Second, you want to hold brainstorming sessions. Not everyone is going to be equally as good at brainstorming as others, but if you can bring people together and have them kind of share ideas off of each other, you're going to find some interesting insights that come out. Some employees who are more risk adverse might have feedback to an employee who's more kind of free forming. And by getting those individuals in a room, you get the best result at the end of whatever you're trying to brainstorm. And the last thing that you want to do is you want to implement a clear decision-making process. So you want to tell your team, here's how the decisions are going to be made, here's each step and who is required at each of those steps. And at the end of that process, you want to tell them, I will keep you informed about what is happening and when, to make sure that nobody is caught off guard. And if you already feel like you're kind of struggling as a manager, you can check out this video that I made about why your employees hate you and what you can do about it. And with that, I will see you on the next one.